It has been said that there is no suffering on earth that can equal the torture of purgatory. Don't begrudge your suffering here, because I want you to welcome it. It is useful for the cleansing and the salvation of souls. So if we talk about the topic of suffering, I want you to hold off on the purgatory comment if you're a Protestant, and just be patient with me for a minute. Well, actually, I should say even if you're a Catholic, because many Catholics question that. But just go with me for a minute. Every single time we sin, I think of the analogy I've heard several times about we get confused between God's forgiveness and the washing away of the stain of sin. If I have been told by my father a million times, do not throw balls, you might break a window. Do not throw balls outside. And then I wait for my dad to leave. I throw that baseball, I break the window. I'm like, oh, I have to tell my dad. I can either say I'm sorry and beg forgiveness or not. But most of us are like, I'm sorry, I didn't listen. I shouldn't have done it. That's what Jesus opened the doors for us to be able to do that. That is our ticket into heaven. Jesus, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And he will say, welcome, my good and faithful servant. But someone still has to repair that window. It still needs to be fixed. Every single time you sin, in my mind, I get this image of someone throws tomatoes and it splotches on you, right? And over my lifetime, I've got all these tomato splotches, except for it's like worse. It's mud balls or balls of maggots, and they just go on you, and they're just filthy rotting on your skin. And well, not your skin, your soul. Because when I stand in front of God, I will stand in front of him naked, be completely naked. And that's going to be humbling anyway. Just like Adam and Eve had to be there naked, and they tried to cover themselves when God saw their sin. This is what we're talking about, guys. So God's going to see me naked, not that he doesn't anyway, but I'm going to be forced to be standing there with everything hanging out. And then worse than just letting God see my naked body as I stand there, is see my naked soul and seeing the filthy patches from all the stains of my sin. Those have to get burnt off. It's connecting to that wedding feast where they went out into the streets and they gave wedding garments. They went out and fill it up, let everyone come in that could come in. And then a couple people sold their wedding garments and they came back and they didn't have it. Like, what are you doing here? You don't have your wedding garment. And they're like, get out. And everyone understood that. But basically it was understood that the persons who had the weddings purchased wedding garments for the people. So everyone should have had it. So these people that didn't have theirs, they sold it. They got rid of it. That's what we do with sin. We have this birthright to heaven. And when we sin, we basically sell that birthright. So when I see God, I'm going to look at his brilliance is going to shine on me like, oh. And it's going to make so much more apparent to me all the filthy spots of my sin. And God doesn't put anyone in hell. People throw themselves in hell. God doesn't put anyone in purgatory. They throw themselves in purgatory and say, I thank you for welcoming me into heaven. I need to go burn this off. I cannot be seen like this. So purgatory, it may be a place, but it's more of a process. And we need to burn off that sin so we can be clean for God. And despite the fact that this is sounding like a talk on purgatory, it's not, but I do want to say, we can also burn off the stain of our sin here and now. And it's easier to do it here and now, but we're just so unwilling because we run from pain. I just did a podcast with a woman today and we talked about Mother Teresa. She tried so hard not to get comfortable because she knew that comfort would make you weak. And she'd be invited to speak around the world. And when they gave her a place to stay, she'd sleep on the cement floor, the carpet floor, and she wouldn't sleep on the bed because she didn't get to sleep on a bed where she lived. And she didn't want to get used to that softness. Every time that she refused a bed was a mortification. That mortification burnt off a stain, either off herself or off of someone else. That is the power of suffering, you guys. So many of us run from suffering. Don't run from your suffering. When someone mocks you, receive that suffering and say, Lord, I take that pain. I'll take that suffering. I'll take that mortification. Offer it for my child right now who's estranged. Offer it for my child right now who's on drugs. Offer it for my neighbor who's having an affair. I offer that for my friend who's dying of cancer. When we take suffering, it has value. Don't waste that value. Don't waste it by saying, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this, because then you're not receiving your suffering. It is a gift. It is a great gift. I've said this before, but it's been said that if the angels could envy us for anything, it would be for the Eucharist and the fact that we can suffer. They want to be able to suffer for Christ because they know how much it unites us. Jesus wouldn't have suffered if there was a better way. Jesus is God. He and God are one. And if they thought there was any other way for us to get our salvation, don't you think they would have done it? There's a value and power, and God took all of our sins on. Be careful, not so that we could fly straight to heaven, but so that the doors to heaven could be open. We still got to do our part. St. Paul says that. I'm going to do what is lacking in the sufferings of Christ. And that's what he's referring to. I got to do my part and accept my suffering. God doesn't want you to suffer. He hates that you have to suffer. He hates that humanity chooses with their free will to sin against him. But he loves us so much. He's given us a way to pay off as much of our debt of sin down here as we can. Don't waste it. Welcome the suffering. Look, I'm not saying I'm great at it. I'm not. There are many times I'm like, I don't want this. I don't want this. I know a man whose wife left him, and he's trying so hard to save her soul because she's living in a state of legalized adultery. And he had to get stitches in his finger. And when he went to the doctor, he said, don't give me anesthesia. I'm like, are you nuts? He's not nuts. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's tremendous. I've gotten stitches, and the finger is the most painful spot I've ever gotten stitches because you get so many more nerve endings there. But he took that suffering to burn off the stain, in his case, of his wife's sin. He offered it for her. And that's love, deep love. You can change another person's heart. You can change another person's will. And you can do it by your own suffering, your own mortifications, your own willingness to burn off stains. And you can do it for yourself. Lord, I want to burn off the stain of my own sin. I'll fast. That's why fasting is so powerful. I'll go without food. I'll go without drink. I'll turn off the heat in my house in the winter for a day. I'll be cold. I'll not wear shoes. Think of all the monks, all the religious orders that go barefoot or with just sandals. If their feet freeze, their bodies are cold. They don't do it because they're stupid. They do it because they know that mortification will take away the stain of someone's sin, beginning with their own. So I could talk on this topic forever. This is a topic God's been speaking to me about because I am so much into comfort. I don't like suffering. And I asked my guardian angel to help me. I asked Mother Mary to help me. I asked Jesus to help me. I ask all the saints who've gone before me who know the true value of suffering to help me. Because I'd rather do my suffering here so that when I die and meet Christ, I have so many less stains on my body. Next April, I'll do a talk on Divine Mercy Sunday, which also washes away the stains. And so grateful I've taken advantage of that because that has washed away a whole lot of stains that I am undeserving of having washed off me. I'm a filthy, filthy sinner. Sometimes I think of my sins and I cry. Can't imagine what God thought. And that's not even the affair I had years ago. Everyone thinks of that. I think of the other things I've said, thoughts I've had, hatreds I've felt, people I've wished dead. just makes me choke up. Not for my sake, but for how it must have hurt God. I hope this helps. If you're suffering right now, if you're just feeling depression, if you're feeling the suffering pain for someone else, if your back hurts, if you're bedridden, if you have ALS and you can't get out of your body, which has become your tomb, praise God for it. Ask him to help you receive that suffering. Ask God, what soul needs your suffering most? He can place it on that person. Recently, I've said, Lord, who in my family lineage needs my suffering to burn off the stain of their sin? A great, 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 great grandparent? If they're still in purgatory after hundreds of years, maybe my suffering is the last thing they need. And lastly, if I die tomorrow, please suffer for me. Please pray for my soul. I need it so badly. I love you. I just really want these videos to make a difference. Let's just all go to heaven. Let's take the suffering we have here. Let's fight Satan. He wants us to love pleasure. I love God. I love you, even if I've never met you, because God calls me to love you. So I love you and I want you in heaven with me, and one day we'll meet, whether you're in Australia or Hungary or Poland or Brazil or any of those that have posted to me that you're watching from other countries. God bless you. I'll meet you there one day. Until then, I'm Dr. Christine Bacon. I'd like to thank you for watching yet another informational Bacon Bit. And I'd like to remind you, despite all this suffering, to remember to always live your life sunny side up.